I'm here with the owners of the collection. We got George Finley, been friends for a long time, Steve and Kyra Shook with Shook Enterprises, and I'd just like to take a few minutes for those watching to know that what y'all have with Shook Enterprises, you actually have an organization that focuses on cars and working on cars and maintaining cars. And a lot of times when you have a large collection, it's very difficult, and sometimes the owner isn't always able to mechanically work on them. So this group has been under the watchful eye of some very talented folks. So could you just tell us a little bit about Shook Enterprises and what you guys have done over the last decades?
Well, I've always been interested in cars. My first car was an MGTD, and couldn't afford for somebody else to fix it. So ended up doing that myself. And since then, they've always been, cars and motorcycles have always been a fascination for me. Fortunately, I have an aptitude for fixing them. And that kind of led to George and I getting together, and I think George and I each kind of ratchet each other up to higher lows, I guess you would call it. We work pretty well together. George is always excited, and I kind of tend to stay level and calm, so we kind of offset each other. And his enthusiasm is catching. We've been fortunate enough on the Apollos to find kind of a common ground. What a wonderful car. They've been a joy to work on, and I never would have been exposed to them except for George. One of the cars that we're going to put at auction, little Porsche Speedster, George was, well, actually two of the cars we're putting at auction. George was kind enough to help me finance these cars. That's, at the time, the money they cost was out of my bounds. The Speedster and the AC, I have as a result of George. He's also been kind enough to fund some of my repairs. But mainly what we do is just anything mechanical and electrical on just about any kind of a car we'll fix.
Wonderful.
Well, if I might say this, I don't know about helping finance the acquisition of cars. I think that perhaps I've been one of his good customers who has kept the old cash flow rolling at Shook Enterprises, because over the years, of course, we own a lot of these cars together. Two of the Apollos are ours.
Yes.
This guy, this blue Spider, which appeared at Pebble Beach a number of years ago, Milt Brown, who was the real brains behind International Motor Cars, acquired this from the widow of the original owner, who was also an investor in the company, a fellow by the name of Dr. Hayden Gordon, physicist, nuclear, worked at the Rad Lab at Livermore, Berkeley, Cal, if you will. Anyway, so Steve this was the first Apollo we acquired. Milt had shown at Pebble Beach, and of course, as always happens, he had this next project that he needed some money on. So he said, "Finley, would you get out here?" And so I brought my late son Buck with me, and we went out and, I drove it up in the hills of Oakland, Piedmont area. Well, I mean, deal done, right? So, but I think Steve was really impressed with the way the car was constructed, the way it handled, the way it performed. And so he got hooked. So then we ended up bought two more. We have Apollo #1 behind coupe, #1 coupe behind me, the red one over here. This is Apollo #1 Spider. So the restoration on Apollo 1 coupe, it was truly it was beyond a barn find. It was like a crushed barn find.
We actually declined the car twice.
Twice, yeah. We said, no, we don't want it. Nonetheless, we did have it at the Concorso Italiano in 2013, which happened to be the 50th anniversary of the Apollo and another Mark, you may not know, Lamborghini. We were both celebrating. So we assembled 19 Apollos at the Concorso Italiano, which that year was at the country club next to Laguna Seca. I think it's Laguna Seca Country Club. Nonetheless, we also had the prototype, which was all aluminum. First car, first Apollo, which looked like a shark. It did not look like it should be on four wheels, but it was. But one of the Rothschild children owned that car in Beverly Hills, and he was kind enough to put it in their private transport and bring it up to show it at the Concorso. So we got a lot of attention. We had 19 Apollos on display.
That's awesome.
I mean, that was just like unheard of. So anyway, Shook got hooked on that, but then again, you had sports cars and race cars and all kinds of stuff in your stable.
Yeah.
And motorcycles. We have, how many motorcycles are we putting in the auction? 20,
12,
30? I
15.
don't know.
There's a lot of motorcycles, which, the diversity in the collection is really neat. We've got sports cars, we've got classics, 50s cars, there's some race cars, some custom cars, and of course the motorcycles we talked about, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the diversity of taste that you guys have. And Kyra, I always love hearing a woman's perspective, and you've been an active participant in all of this, and we'd love to hear your view on all these cars and motorcycles being all over the place, and kind of, I'm sure, trying to moderate these guys and kind of keeping everything together, because I think that's probably something that you should be credited with.
Well, thanks,
Well, I
but,
agree.
and we started out in a 59 Volkswagen bus that we bought together in '72 and outfitted that for a 3-month sojourn through the Midwest, and that was called a honeymoon. And then from that point on, we had to find a place to live, and it had to have a garage, because it could have been a tent and a garage. It just needed a place for motorcycles and the MG TD. And that's pretty much how I figured out from that point on. It's pretty much how things were going to roll, which was fine. And it's been a wonderful journey. Our whole family, I have 4 kids, and our whole family have been part of this whole process all these years. George and his family have been a delight, and we've really had a lot of fun with these cars and hope to continue to do so in a variety of ways. They've just led us down all these really nice paths, and a lot of neat people in the car business in general, and people who do appreciate cars are a fascinating bunch. So I feel lucky.
I think that the neatest thing about the old car world is that it allows us to connect with people, and it is the stories that they're not just for us. You guys have been able to experience some of these cars, but also the stories that are yet to come for the folks that have them next.